Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We've got a big show this week with 4 brand new reviews, with 2 playing in theaters and 2 now available to stream. This includes a revisit to one of my early reviews that is now available to stream. This week on the show, they're on the run, Bad Boys style, and Bad Boys for life. You can't see them, but they see everything in The Watchers. It's a giant shark under Paris in the Netflix original Under Paris. Then finally, a revisit to one of my early reviews that's now available to stream on Netflix. He's not a hitman, but he can pretend in the Netflix original Hitman. We got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows to watch a roar and a bursting of flames. The Movie Wire podcast. With just need people like me. The podcast for hot and trending movies. The Wire.
And here we go.
When their former captain is implicated in corruption, 2 Miami police officers have to work to clear his name in the 4th entry to the Bad Boys franchise in Bad Boys Ride or Die.
Mike, there's a storm coming. Things are going to get bad. We're going to be tested. Just know you are good. Tonight.
Boys, if you're seeing this, I'm probably dead. Whoever gave the order to kill me is in the department. They're coming after you next.
You should be careful.
Your people want you dead. We're being framed. It's just us, no backup.
We got 2 suspects, Lowry and Burnett.
You set the damn fan on fire.
Everybody relax. The fire's on the outside. Now it's on the inside.
Y'all are some terrible fucking fugitives.
Put a bounty on them. They'll have it coming from cops,
Cartel. And every gang in the city.
The bounty is dead or alive. I'll take the 3 in the front. You take the 6 in the back. Oh, no, the fuck you not.
You hit? No, like jelly bean. Nobody likes that shit.
These dirty cops attacked our families. We're not losing today.
I mean nasty Mike. Oh, city bang bang, motherfucker.
Be gone, Gator.
I rebuke you. See, Mike, that's how you command the universe. That motherfucker racist, Mike. Go. That motherfucker racist.
Rated R.
Well, the summer movie season has officially started, kicking us off with a sequel full of booms, explosions, gunfire, and editing that will make your neck so sore from looking all over the screen by the time it's done. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are back, reprising their roles as detectives Mike and Marcus, who once again will be investigating a case that will involve some stern looks from Smith and some frightened looks from Lawrence, all while yelling, "Oh hell no," most of the movie. And what's a Bad Boys movie without the return of our dead Captain Howard? who returns after tragically dying in the last installment, Captain Howard leaves a series of clues to guide our two detectives into the only feud that can be trusted, since the conspiracy goes high up in the chain and no one can be trusted. Now, Bad Boys Ride or Die doesn't try and reinvent the wheel. It does exactly what it has done in the last 3 entries before. So this is a safe entry to those that know exactly what kind of film they're getting into. It plays exactly like the perfect summer matinee film that will take you on a loud and fast ride without feeling like you wasted your time standing in line for 2 hours. But for me, after a couple days, it will be forgotten or blended together with the rest of the Bad Boys movies, with the exception of a fantastic first act that our directors Adele El Arabi and Bilal Afala do a fantastic job setting up the fun factor with some fantastic visuals and an emotional stake, including a sweet and visual pleasing reunion that I will keep to myself between Marcus and Captain Howard. But one of the things that do seem drastically off in this Bad Boys entry is the connection between Smith and Lawrence this go around. Their chemistry feels stiff and almost off-putting. Either they are trying to portray partners that have worked together too long, which is a possibility, but on screen it's just translated as bland and almost a bore to watch if we take away all the gunfights. Part of the issue we have with the chemistry between our two actors is the writing. Our writing duo, Chris Bremer from the previous century of Bad Boys for Life and Will Beal from Aquaman and Zack Snyder's Justice League, seem to not know how to have fun with our two characters, especially when it counts, on a comedic level and an emotional level. Bremer and Beal don't take these characters far enough when it comes to the comedic banter or the emotional elements. During the runtime, we get countless scenes that are given the opportunity to really shine in terms of building upon an already grounded relationship between Marcus and Mike, especially during the first act where it builds a good foundation for this to really take their partnership up a level. These are a set of characters that have been known for 29 years, and our writers are given the opportunity to really take this to heart and evolve these characters. Again, to me, this was lacking in the 2020s Bad Boys for Life. And I was hoping during our last or third installment of Bad Boys being back, after 17 years, that movie focused on the mere fact that we're revisiting these characters. So to an extent, I can understand the push for nostalgia. But when it comes to this 4th installment, I was hoping for something a little bit more. Not necessarily nostalgic, but our characters deserve some better banter and some in-depth conversation, given what we have seen from the past films, the years they've been together, and the foundation of what our first act sets up for our characters. And you know what? I get it. It's a Bad Boys movie. I get the intent. I know my wants for a Bad Boys movie or asking for more in-depth chemistry might seem ridiculous for a movie that's main intent is to give some big names a backdrop to just blow things up and exchange gunfire for mere entertainment. But just because it has these elements doesn't mean it should just settle for it. Let's take another buddy cop movie as an example. Let's say, we'll say Lethal Weapon 4. Even though not the strongest of the franchise, but our cast is entertaining. Our cast seems to be having fun with the chemistry that they have built from the previous 3 entries. And when the cast is having fun, it takes even the crappiest script to at least an entertainment level. During Smith and Lawrence's performances here, compared to their previous entries, I barely cracked a smile. The script seems to be solely banking on Smith and Lawrence's on-screen presence to help drive this chemistry, drive this story. But the one thing for sure, when it comes to our writers, there is a noticeable lack of confidence. Not only we can tell from the writing that's present, but also the mere fact we are still bringing back Joe Pantoliano as Captain Howard to insert and construct a story. And don't get me wrong, I love Joe Pantoliano in Bad Boys, as I'm sure many others did. And writers Bremer and Beal strategically tap into this for 3 reasons. The first one is the audience wants it. Second, they couldn't figure out a more clever or creative character to pair up with Smith and Lawrence to add anything more interesting. And final and third, creating a character to attempt to replace Pantoliano is a hard feat. And for our writers, it probably took more effort and thought than writing in the words bang, bang, and boom, boom into the script. Bad Boys Ride or Die delivers exactly what it promises, a fast-paced, action-packed thrill ride fueled by nostalgic characters. While it may not break new ground or offer profound insight, it succeeds in providing 2 hours of escapist entertainment for audiences craving adrenaline-fueled entertainment. Whether you're a die-hard fan of the franchise or simply in the mood for a popcorn flick, Bad Boys Ride or Die delivers enough high-octane thrills to keep you on the edge of your seat, but at the same time lacks any risk-taking to give us anything new. You take away the booms and the bangs and the loud audio, what you are left with are 2 characters that just look like they're kind of there collecting a paycheck. It rides a fine line on generic, gives hints at being forgettable in a few months, but it will do the job while your butts are in the seat watching it. I'm giving Bad Boys Ride or Die 2 stars. To save Paris from a bloodbath, a grieving scientist is forced to face her tragic past when a giant shark appears in the Seine in this Netflix exclusive, Under Paris.
We got a signal, guys. It's impossible. I saw it. In the heart of Paris. What's she doing down there? There's a shark in the Seine.
Why would it come to Paris?
When it was a beluga, you didn't ask questions, did you?
The triathlon starts tomorrow.
If we do nothing, it'll just get worse. Your little PR stunt will turn into a massacre. It'll be carnage.
Paris is, and will forevermore, be a place for celebration.
Is it over?
Now, every time a killer shark movie comes out, you can almost bet every single time there will be at least one critic with that one tagline that states it's the best since Jaws or scarier than Jaws. And Under Paris didn't disappoint in terms of finding that one critic to say that magical, predictable line. But one of the things that Under Paris did disappoint on is being an effective, scary shark movie. And I can give the movie a headline, I can give it a tagline, but I doubt the filmmakers or studios would use it because it's not as grabby or catchy. But yeah, I'll just throw it out there. Under Paris is better than listening and watching the Baby Shark video on repeat for over 2 hours. Now, I actually do think it's fair to compare this movie to Jaws for the mere main fact that our writers Yannick Dawn, Maud Hedwang, and Xavier Jens copy every single cliche character they possibly can from not only Jaws, but numerous shark movies. We have the power-hungry mayor that won't listen to common sense and won't close the beaches, so to speak. We have the goofy assistant to the mayor. We have the scientist. We have the by-the-book cop. And we have characters that have no problem going in the water knowing there's a killer shark on the loose. So if the writers are going to play that game and just copy and paste, then yes, viewers are in the right to compare this movie to Jaws. But can a copy of characters pasted in a new setting be as scary or good? No, because if filmmakers or writers have to copy stereotypical cliche characters, that means the original is far more creative, thus better than the straight-to-streaming picture. Under Paris stars Bernice Bejo as Sophia, a scientist that takes, tracks, and studies sharks who takes her team of researchers out to get a sample of the shark that was previously tagged. Things obviously don't go as planned, and Sophia now must deal with the trauma during the rest of the movie. It has to be that way, or the character would just be a boring scientist, and we can't have any boring scientists in a creature feature. Sophia finds out that the strange shark that she tracked has made its way into the Seine in Paris, where it creates a problem for the locals, including the mayor, played by Anne Maravin, who conveniently has a big city swimming race coming up. This is where Sophia teams up with a by-the-book Paris cop, Adele, played by Nassim Lees, to attempt to either convince the mayor to cancel the event or try and hunt this shark down. Now, the shark-killing horror subgenre really hasn't had any bite to it when it comes to substance over the years, with the exception of a handful like Deep Blue Sea and a couple of my guilty pleasures like Bait from 2012, Shark Night from 2011, and 47 Meters Down. And I'll just go ahead and admit it, I don't really care. There is still nothing like a night full of drinking, friends, and conversation while watching Sharknado. A lot of these movies that seem to attempt a mayhem shark-killing movie without the intent of having fun with itself or giving the audience what they want in current times seem to crash and burn, with the exception of 47 Meters Down. So when it comes to Under Paris, this is one of those that teeters over shark creature feature and B-movie goofiness. The first half of the film has some okay moments when it comes to the entertainment value, but could have used better direction from our writer-director Xavier Jens, that seems to be focused on the mere kill scenes versus the build-up to these kill scenes. The use of the camera here is the biggest flaw when it comes to Jen's direction. That really starts to build, but then it doesn't go anywhere with it. To really intensify some of these scares, he needed to slow down the camera, really take in the environment and seclusion of the water, especially in the underwater scenes. Then we get into the second half of the picture, where this is where Under Paris starts to show that it has no idea what in the hell it wants to be. By adding a mayor that acts like a character that reminded me of Sherry O'Terry's mayor performance from 1999's Inspector Gadget. This character and performance is completely out of tone of the rest of the movie. If the intent was to add a character of comedy relief like we see time and time again from creature features like this, the authoritarian figure is not one that works, because this is supposed to be an added conflict and not moments of comedy relief. It throws the balance completely off, and it confuses the viewer on what the hell it wants to be. It feels like the filmmakers halfway through shooting realized this movie wasn't going to be taken seriously and decided to just switch it over to a silly B movie with moments of complete ridiculousness that tries to sell the audience to be more fun than what it is. Part of the issue that adds on to this feeling is the special effects, which is no surprise for a shark movie that goes straight to streaming. But there are better and effective ways to really not make this seem cheap or low budget. We have a scene in this movie where it has some smart tension building elements surrounding a character that interacts with a shark while they're both in the water, and is the moment where everything feels safe until the shark starts circling the character until it jets underwater. All the other characters are yelling, "It's not safe to swim!" But this character thinks it's okay. Then the shark makes a big appearance, and the pure low-grade CGI ruined all the credibility that the tension was building to. During the first half of the film, Jens gave us shots of the shark that didn't look half bad, where he played with the lighting and the environment to ensure the shark looked somewhat real. Well, real enough. But right when we get this shark out of water and eye-rolling jump kills is where the effects really lose all credibility. I've talked about this before on the show, is when you have a low budget, practical and creative direction is key. If you can't make the audience believe in what you are seeing on screen, then leave the CGI out of it and insert creativity to how you can make the audience believe it's a threat. Jen shows in his direction that his vision of these moments are shooting for the cool moments, but come across as the boo moments. It would have been a better strategy to shoot for scares versus goofy looking shark kills that come across as unintentionally laughable. And let me clarify, these are not the so bad it's fun moments or funny moments like, say, Sharknado, but the roll of the eyes and looking at the time bad. But here's the thing. Let me be completely fair after completely destroying this movie. Did the movie keep my attention? Yes. Was it entertaining? About 50% of it was. Is it the worst shark movie you can watch on streaming right now? No, absolutely not. Under Paris has moments of asking for the attention from the audience, and for the most part, it is successful in gaining attention. But then the sad part is, once we see more and more of the shark, the worse it gets. And that's a problem for a shark movie. But looking at it for face value and entertainment value, at the end of the day, did it entertain? Yes, for the most part. But this shark movie has the bite of a chihuahua. I'm giving Under Paris 2 stars.
It's the end. It's the end.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
Witness how the strangers became the strangers in The Strangers Chapter 1 that I really wish I never witnessed, receiving 1 star. When his family is murdered, a deaf boy is trained by a mysterious shaman to become an instrument of death in Boy Kills World. That was so crazy that it just worked, receiving 3 stars. Welcome to the front line when empires fall in Civil War. That seemed like the wrong movie in the wrong time, but added nothing more than things we see on the news during election time, receiving 2 stars. Create something to fear in The First Omen, which was haunting to think how it took me by surprise on the amount of care that went into creating such a haunting experience experience on an exhausted franchise, receiving 3.5 stars. A down-and-out stuntman must find the missing star of his ex-girlfriend's blockbuster film in Fall Guy that barely fell below a recommendation, receiving 2.5 stars, but had a fantastic soundtrack. Rise Together or Fall Alone and Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, which was a complete popcorn flick and played like a fireworks show with a lot of great visuals but lacked any substance, receiving 2.5 stars. Your biggest fear just got bigger in the horror movie Sting, which started with the Sting, then just got caught in its own web of overconfidence and writer's block, receiving 2 stars. The Ghostbusters are back, facing a chilling threat in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire that put a freeze on all the charm, receiving 2 stars. And finally, children can be such monsters in the wildly entertaining and fresh take on a vampire film that involves a vampire in a tutu in Abigail that received 3.5 stars. Now, before I get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that has become part of my weekly listening routine. And it just so happened that he recently paid a visit to the Seattle area to drop in and say hi. Stay tuned for an update with Sleepless in Seattle, the Casting Views and Movie Wire story. And the man I'm talking about is Dan over at the Casting Views podcast. Make sure to listen, subscribe, and review his show. But let's hear from Dan over at Casting Views now.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.
A young artist gets stranded in an extensive, immaculate forest in Western Ireland, where after finding shelter, she becomes trapped alongside 3 strangers stalked by mysterious creatures each night. In the writing and directing debut of M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Ashana Shyamalan in The Watchers.
What is this place? Who are you? We're just like you, lost.
They come every night. They watch us until the sun rises again. It's a window on the other side.
They'll be very interested in someone new.
What is that? What are they doing?
Applause. For you, Mina.
Don't you want to know what they are?
That's impossible.
Now, love him or hate him, M. Night Shyamalan Films has always kind of made me a little bit excited going into one of his movies. Then his later works that made me excited because I felt like I was gambling, like I was putting $100 into a slot machine and hitting max bet. From his early work with The Sixth Sense to today, M. Night Shyamalan movies are either going to walk away extremely happy or extremely pissed off. Now with his daughter, Ashana Shyamalan, I had the same feeling. The only difference is there's nothing on Ashana Shyamalan's resume for me to compare it to other than her dad's. And I know, it's wrong to compare father and daughter when it comes to a creative eye, but my excitement was more surrounding curiosity of what I was going to get from this 25-year-old filmmaker with the Shyamalan name with no projects under her belt to get this theatrical release. My curiosity involved if the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan was gonna follow in her dad's footsteps and build her story surrounding a twist ending. The trailer definitely sets it up for that, or was Shauna Shyamalan going to present something completely different, and the trailers were the tease. Watching the trailer to the watchers, it has M. Night Shyamalan written all over it. Teases of curiosity, a mystery, a twist, but the ending result of what we get is a complete and utter mess. And I'm kind of sad to say, this is the movie you would expect to see from a filmmaker that harnesses a famous name that has no projects under her belt in terms of movie storytelling or experience. The Watchers has M. Night Shyamalan written all over it, only completely dumbed down when it comes to storytelling and writing. It's almost like M. Night Shyamalan had taped Shauna Shyamalan's eyelids wide open and forced her to watch his film Lady in the Water and all the Tinkerbell films on repeat side by side nonstop for over 5 years. The Watcher stars Dakota Fanning as Mina, who we get little hints of trauma and mystery of her past in the first act that will trickle throughout the movie. Mina works in a pet shop that has to deliver a bird to an address that sends her in the middle of the woods in Ireland. Who placed the order for the bird, who the bird was for, we don't know, nor do I care. But hey, it's an easy way to get the story going quickly to find our main character trapped in this predicament, trapped in these woods, and these woods seem to trap all its victims in a pre-made house with 3 other captives, Sierra, Daniel, and Madeline, played by Georgina Campbell, Oliver Finnegan, and Owen Ford. During the day, these 4 are free to roam the woods that trap them, but the rules are they have to be in this hut during nightfall for our mysterious creatures to watch them at night, to study them, like a reality TV show that the film hints at, since this is the only entertainment for our 4 captives to watch while they're in this hut. A reality TV series about men and women in a house. Now, I know Ashana places sin to be symbolic, but as the movie goes on, it gets utterly humorous and confusing. Why this TV and this DVD is playing this show. This is an overly simplistic symbolic tie-in, but it really is so simplistic it feels thrown in the most simplistic symbolic cliche. By the time we reach the end, we start to question, what in the hell is this movie doing in this hut? I will not give away the ending, but it is absolutely ridiculous if we reflect on the little details that Ashana tries to place in to prove a symbolic nature. This is where the movie really fails. It's just inserting things just to insert them. As we start to unfold the mystery, the movie feels very segmented, where we feel Shyamalan in her screenplay writing feels so structured, it's almost like she's just going down a plot point list. The movie comes across as Shyamalan saying, and then, and that takes away the mystery. Each and every one of our characters seem to deliver their lines just so the movie and story can move along, instead of adding curiosity. The only thing that really holds this mess of a story and characters up is the look of the movie, the tone, and the way the cast brilliantly delivers the lines of a dumb script. It gives off a professional tone. So as a viewer, we look upon it like a professional motion picture made for theaters. But if we look beyond the surface at the story progression, dialogue, and the actual payoff, it's a Trojan horse of cinema. It's a low-budget streaming movie in disguise. Now, to be fair, there is some credit to this within the film production crew to make this movie look good, and Shyamalan does have some good shots here. Let me clarify, just some good shots. But most of the time, her direction only supports her vision of the segmented plot point list of her script. Her vision and direction feels like she's so eager to hit plot points that lead eagerly to the climactic reveal, like a child trying to go to bed on Christmas Eve, that she forgets the building portion, the build of curiosity, the build of mystery, developing our characters to really ensure the climax is a real payoff, not a real fuck off. There are scenes where Mina, again played by Fanning, starts to have some interesting conversations and starts to actually do some interesting things that could have taken this movie in the right direction. But then it is ruined by lines that are so blunt and forced to move this plot forward to the point of frustration. Shyamalan reminded me of me. Trying to get my wife out of a party that I didn't want to go to in the first place, where I would just get rid of any subtext and conversation and keep sentences and conversations short, given the impression that I wanted to go. I wanted the night to be over. The Watchers is a prime example of a writing problem and at times a direction problem. I can see the sparks of potential with this concept and story throughout, but the execution is flawed. The story almost wants to be like 2016's 10 Cloverfield Lane, but Shyamalan is too green of a writer to really know how to have a dialogue dialogue-driven story. Shyamalan has all the talent on board. She has good performances, but the execution of this idea and the writing dialogue is nowhere up to the level it should be with a premise like this. Shyamalan instead spends as little time as possible inside the hut, where this is the most interesting part of the movie, especially when we get to the last 30 minutes. Every time I would see our characters leave this hut, I would roll my eyes and give out a long sigh. Shyamalan doesn't realize that not only the characters are flourishing during their time in this secluded hut, but so is Shyamalan's direction. This is where Shyamalan shows great color and some good shots with our characters, with some suspenseful moments of mystery. She would have been wise to reach out to another writer to add to the credits to help her along this story and this dialogue journey. This is a movie that really could have been something, but Shyamalan turns it into absolute nothingness. You know, it's funny that this movie's entitled The Watchers because I'm going to encourage nobody to be a watcher of this movie. It doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be. Ishana Shyamalan needs to step away from trying to be like her father in style and story and create something to put her stamp on. During the entire runtime, the overshadowing of M. Night Shyamalan was always present, except in this case, it was with a writer that is extremely green and rushed her vision. And the ending result, just like her father's later movies, is a disappointing twist ending, but the difference here, we feel that disappointment during the two final acts, within the majority of the movie. I'm giving The Watchers 1.5 stars. Glenn Powell plays a professor moonlighting as a hitman for a city police department until he descends into dangerous, dubious territory when he finds himself attracted to a woman who enlists his services in the Netflix original Hitman.
No, I don't buy it.
What?
You're not a hitman. You can't be. I tried looking you up, and nothing. It's like you don't even exist.
I guess I'm just your fantasy.
So what's the biggest difference between the real you and your occupation?
By the way, my name is Gary Johnson, and I'm a fake hitman. I realize not everyone fantasized about the same hitman. Every sting operation was a performance.
This is serious. I am in service business.
And each arrest was like a standing ovation.
Okay, Daniel Day.
I had it down to a science.
Sounds lovely.
Until things got, well,
Ron.
complicated.
Madison.
We're expecting heavy turbulence, so prepare to brace for impact.
Do I scare you?
No.
Remember the lady came in trying to have her husband killed that we let go?
No, that he let go.
Yeah, her husband was just found dead.
I'm sorry, what happened?
From my perspective, you're getting a little sloppy. You're Gary? The hitman.
My name is Gary Johnson, and my simple question for you is, who is your hitman?
We'll see.
Hold up, please don't let me be misunderstood.
Now, I have been hard on Glenn Powell the last couple of years, calling him emotionless, always miscast, even showing my immaturity by calling him Mr. McGrimace Face or Perma-Smirk. So when I found out there was an early screening of a straight-to-streaming Glenn Powell movie who plays a hitman, I had a choice, either to skip it and spend the day with yard work or attending this. And honestly, I didn't sleep much the previous night, so I figured worst case scenario. I could catch a quick nap in the screening if this movie took a turn for the worse, or if I just got done watching the freakishly small, tight-lipped actor play a hitman and just catch some Z's and I can just wait for June 7th when it hit Netflix like everybody else, or I'm in the comfort of my own home with access to multiple drinks that I could take a shot every time Powell attempted to deliver dialogue through his lips that seemed to do the opposite emotion of what his eyes are doing. But here's the thing. the Netflix original Hitman, I do have to say that Glenn Powell did surprise me a little bit. Knowing nothing about this movie going into it except the mere fact that Powell was playing a Hitman-type underdog character. Now, what really surprised me about this movie is that this movie isn't just written with just some thought, but Powell's performance was also delivered with some thought. That really pushes him to deliver not just one character, but multiple. Powell has to portray multiple characters in Hitman, from a college professor to an undercover cop trying to attempt to live as a hitman to win over a girl. There are a lot of levels to our Gary Johnson character that Glenn Powell has to play. Hitman plays off almost like a mix of bare bones and subtle Eddie Murphy from The Nutty Professor, mixed in with the type of feel from 1997's John Cusack's Grosse Pointe Blank. The multiple characters Powell has to play are all stereotypical type of characters, from college professor, a gangster, a hillbilly type, to even a normal hitman that wants to fall in love. Now, the premise of Hitman seems like it's set up for a comedic disaster, something that we've kind of all seen before. We take Gary, played by Powell, who's a college professor that teaches by the day and, well, is also working with the police during the day in a tech department to help police in undercover stings to catch those wanting to hire a hitman to off a coworker or a loved one. Where he finds the time to play hitman and teacher all in the same day, I have no clue. The film doesn't really explain that. But anyway, Gary is there to help with the tech of these undercover stings until their main undercover agent, Jasper, played by Austin Emilio, is suspended and Gary, again played by Powell, has to take his place. This sets the scene for some subtle humor of Powell playing multiple characters that are never really over the top like we would normally see in a movie like this. And to give credit where credit is due, even though I've given him a tough time over the years, this is due to Powell's performance. The characters felt like it should have been over the top, but this would have given the movie the wrong feel. So Powell's performance is actually pretty spot on. Hitman was written by Richard Linklater from the fantastic Boyhood, Scanner Darkly, and 1993's Dazed and Confused, along with Skip Hollandworth from 2011's Bernie, starring Jack Black. And we also do have a writing credit from Glenn Powell himself. And maybe that's the secret sauce for Powell's performance, is to have a stake in the writing to create a vision of how this character is portrayed. Because with multiple characters that Powell plays in this, they're all just subtly different, but enough to contrast his main character, teacher Gary Johnson. Powell integrates character traits from Gary into his alter egos. And as we see his confidence in his alter egos of a hitman progress, we see a subtle transformation of confidence from his teacher character, in which one of the characters even points out by saying, "When did our teacher get so hot?" This is the only piece of dialogue I didn't like because Glenn Powell, Mr. McGrimace face, isn't hot. But here's something we usually don't get from a Glenn Powell performance, is thought put into his characters, where his performance actually matches the character. It feels natural. But I can also see this as smart character direction by Richard Linklater, who has shown in his previous movies how to make his characters feel real and feel like they're naturally progressed by the last act. We have seen that from his direction in Dazed and Confused, A Scanner Darkly, even to an extent his 2003 film, School of Rock, that even makes Jack Black come across as subdued and controlled to amplify the heart of his character. What our writers and Linklater do here is create a gradual building of story that never really feels rushed, with a focus around Gary's character progression, because these filmmakers understand that this is meant to be more of a journey of Gary, more so than a cliche crescendo to an action climax that gives the underdog the Superman syndrome of becoming a badass all of a sudden during the last act. Now, we do have cliche moments that one would expect from a movie about a nerdy teacher that becomes a fill-in for a hitman. And on the surface, I get it, from the mere idea can feel unrealistic, and we get plot points that feel a little stretched. And we do get a lot of moments that our Gary character does get put into numerous situations that do look forced, but we don't really ever get the feeling that it's forced. We do have our cliche moments, but by the time we run into these moments, the movie has earned the right to feel just a little bit cliche by spending time with Powell's character, or I should say characters, to have us really care about what the outcome is going to be. And the ending result is a surprising character-driven story. Now, by creating a movie like this to have the character really drive the story during the runtime, we do get moments where a hitman can feel stuck, and it doesn't know where to go. and this is where we do get some cliche scenes and an attempt at comedy. And some of these scenes just feel out of place given what we have seen in contradiction throughout the movie, and I found myself getting a little bored with it. But once our writers got back on direction and back on par with where they wanted to go, they are back in action of creating something interesting. The Netflix original Hitman was an actual surprise to me, but I don't know, maybe it's because with all the films with the same look and feel and same generic performances Netflix has pumped out over the last few years, I went into this movie with extremely low expectations. And the fact I've never been a fan of Glenn Powell, but it would be wrong of me not to give credit where credit is due. Hitman was entertaining. Powell does better than what we've seen from him in the past. Honestly, he does a good job in this movie. And given this is a streaming picture, it may be forgotten down the road, but while watching it, it was a fairly entertaining ride. And just for that, I have to give Hitman a marginal recommendation at 3 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.